Hey everyone, it's Mike with Legacy Doors and More. In this video, I kind of wanted to talk to y'all if you're ever considering building a deck, patio, remodeling one, adding something like custom railing to an existing one, so on and so forth. I wanted to kind of go over what we do, how we are different, as well as build this as somewhat of an educational video. Even if you don't go with us, there's a lot of things that I would always highly recommend to consider when investing in a deck, patio, etc. There's so many things that could be done slightly cheaper, but to pay a little bit more to have it just built like a tank, I would always say is well worth it. We'll summarize some of the different options we do, such as our in-house steel fabricated rails, where we weld them 100% together. This particular rail is one solid piece all the way around with those cable slats. A lot of people like the cable slats because it's a lot of transparency through it. You can see through it very well. But per code, they're not more than 4 inches apart, so still looks really good. This is another one that we did. We did only the railing. This was a pre-existing one. Here's some of our welds and some other builds that we've done. I would also tell you, yes, we do vinyl railing as well. Personally, I really recommend against it though. It's very flimsy. Even though we at first install it very solid, over time it will become very flimsy. Like many good projects, it all starts with the foundation. I mean, you need things to be level, straight, secured, good footers. Even in this particular project, we discussed with the homeowner, they're only going to have about a foot below their deck. So that's a perfect environment for things like mud, weeds, mushrooms, etc. to be growing. So we discussed with them putting a weed barrier down. We try to be as transparent with our clients as possible. So this is one of those scenarios where I said, look, like we can handle it A through Z. We can put the weed barrier down for you. But at the same time, that's like the one part that's pretty easy and it's not rocket science. I would probably recommend you just do that yourself and then hire us for the part that actually does need some expertise, as well as a strong back, breaking your back. But yeah, I mean, starting here, this is the first load-bearing board to go up, the first couple of posts. And again, we're making sure everything is level, everything is square, because if we screw up this step, it's going to mess everything up from here on. I would also point out that typically we like to overbuild things. I see a lot of these decks built with 4x4 posts and they're notched out. We like 4x6 posts or bigger. I mean, things like this load-bearing board could have been a 2x10. We use 2x12s. Even other steps later on, you'll see where even the small truss pieces, we're still using 2x8s, which a 2x6 would have been fine on a little 2 or 3 foot span. It's one of those things, like sure it is a little bit more in labor, it is a decent amount more in the material, but you get a product that's 100 times stronger, even as far as like it not falling apart. Again, per code's going to have you engineer bare minimal, it won't necessarily fall apart as quick. But things like long-term lumber rotting out, twisting, cracking, etc., the bigger and thicker the board is, the less it's going to be doing that stuff. On any big structural point, we like to beef it up as much as possible. We really believe overkill is underrated. Not just with, truss Samson trunk ties. We like to use these long 12-inch lag screws. Because obviously putting a little lag in or a little screw, if it's 3 inches long, it's only sticking into that next board 1.5 inches, and it's sticking into the end of the grains, which is a weak point. Putting it essentially 10.5 inches into those grains, that is a lot more stronger, as well as even the screw itself is a lot thicker. And note that yes, I did pre-drill these. My drill's barely able to get them in like that. If I had not pre-drilled them, there's no way it would have gone through, and it would have been cracking that board like crazy. They're pretty big screws. Here's another step I see plenty of decks skip out on, which is the mid-truss solidifiers. So I don't have them on these ones. Let's look. Their actual topper will help solidify. That reduces sound that resonates. It also helps the trusses from twisting out as much, etc., etc. If there is one thing I have to say about being a contractor that decks really makes you appreciate, I'm a firm believer. I really like screws. I think that they hold for longer and hold better. But, I mean, at the same time, these hanger joists, so those little metal brackets at the end, had to put in 1,100 nails into those. And it took me 4, maybe 5 hours. If it had been screws, it probably would have been more like 12, 15 hours. And honestly, some things, I mean, I do like to put really long lags. So for example, where this load bearing beam goes and transfers to that load bearing beam, we have some 10-inch lags through there, really beefy, heavy duty. That I believe in. But for little things like little 1.5-inch hanger joist nails, perfectly fine. We put very long lags into the ends of them, and then hanger joist as well. It's kind of overkill, but you know, overkill's underrated. These center trusses, so that's load bearing right there with 3 posts in the ground. Right under me is also 3 posts under the ground, load bearing. All right, so let me explain my corners. So I like to build my corners a little bit farther than necessary and then shave them down. I do this for a couple reasons. I don't like a really thin piece of wood right there, because if anybody walks by and, you know, a lawnmower scratches it or whatever, it'll blow out that piece. Whereas here, this is a much more fat piece of wood. The other reason I do it is when you get lumber from Home Depot, we call it green lumber, which means it's fresh lumber, it's not been kiln dried, there's a lot of moisture in it. These boards are still always twisting and shifting and bowing, etc. So this better conforms to whatever imperfections. In the case of this board, if I remember correctly, I think that this corner is twisted in a little bit more, and then this bottom corner is twisted out a little bit less. This is all perfectly straight up and down and level. Same with that board over there. It's this board itself. And a 2x12, putting these boards on here, I mean, it kind of helps straighten it out, but it's a 2x12 on a very short span. So the only thing you can really do is all these screws and everything, they're not really straightening it, they're keeping it from getting worse, you know what I mean? So that's where I like to better just custom conform my corners on anything that is actual lumber. Composite lumber is a different story. That does bow up a little bit, like you can see how this piece here is bowing up a little bit, but they typically don't twist, and or they're a lot easier to manipulate. So I like doing my corners like that. Just gives for a much better end product. And I am going to be painting these edges, so like this tiny little gap here, I might throw some filler in there type of thing, just make it really nice and clean.
Let's talk for a minute about the importance of building a deck correctly, as well as some things that are kind of considered overkill but go a very long way, and what can happen when you don't, when you get the cheap guy that just slaps it together, the bare minimum required, and it falls apart a few years later. One of the most common things we see in decks is rotting and falling apart stair stringers. That's what these are called. They're essentially these structural truss that holds up your steps. If you look at the grains, how they go, this is essentially a 2x12 board that they put at an angle and then cut all these notches out of. So if you look at that thick point right there, that's only really like a 2x5 that's holding up all those steps. So two most common things we see. One, because the grains are going in that angle, that chunk just rips off like it's nothing over time. It literally will crack by itself over time. We put these long lags all the way through, going against the grains essentially. So they will still crack, but at least the lags are holding them together. And then if you look at this one, this is another example of another issue we see with stringers all the time. Is a lot of installers, and mind you, this is a kind of cookie cutter setup, but it's also multi-million-dollar homes, and basically all of them are like this. You can see that one in the background is the same. This is a 20-foot long stringer. It should have another row of center posts, maybe even 2 more rows there should never be a 20-foot span of a stringer. Again, keep in mind that's a 2x12 board that they notch out, so ultimately the actual part that has meat on it is more like a 2x5 that is 20 feet long. That's extremely weak. And then let's talk about wood railing. It's the most common, mainly because it's the cheapest. I highly recommend against it. I mean, it is cheap if you're trying to like flip the house or something. Yeah, it is a cheap way to go, but it's also a ton of maintenance. You gotta stain and reseal and or paint it every year, and there's a lot of edges and corners to always paint around. Steel railing, for example, is pretty much timeless. I mean, you might touch up paint it like once every decade or two, something like that. Significantly different. You can also see how this wood railing, I mean, it's fallen apart. Wood does rot out over time, and as people lean against it and bump it and stuff, it basically wiggles loose and splits that wood, and it just comes loose over time. Vinyl railing is a little bit better, but kind of same. It's built very, very cheap. I have never seen a vinyl railing that more than maybe a year or two later is still solid. Like, it's almost always loose over time. I also highly recommend deck tape. It is a very small upgrade. It essentially goes at the top edge of the truss and or the stringer, between where the truss and stringer will actually be on the underside of the board. The flat point is where the most moisture will be sitting against that lumber. The sides and the backer of it, not so much, but the top flat point is where it will sit the most. This tape is essentially like a tar. It's a really thick, really stretchy material that even as you put screws through and stuff, it self-seals around. It can significantly prolong the life of the lumber, prolonging how long it takes to rot, crack, twist, etc. Next, I would also advise against those bolt-together steel railing kits from Amazon, etc. And a lot of times they're not even steel, sometimes they might be aluminum, etc. They're built very cheap, kind of same as vinyl railing. Like day one, they're great, but over time they become loose, they rust out. Again, this is that client that it was only a year after this was built, and it was rusting, it was super loose. So they paid us to replace all the railing, and also in this particular case, they paid us to relocate where the actual stairs are, so they go on the side over here in a minute. It's one of those things, again, like if they would have just had the nice railing done from day one, they wouldn't be spending so much more to have it redone. And really, it's not much more. I mean, it's one of those things, like the Amazon pre-built stuff, the material's way more, but the labor's way cheaper. Versus in our case, the material's way less, but it's way more custom, so the labor's way more expensive. But really, a lot of times it kind of balances out. Lastly, I kind of want to talk about different design ideas. I mean, there's a million things we can do with steel, with lumber, etc. We can literally take stencils and CNC them into a flat sheet of steel if you would like anything like this. I mean, really, sky's the limit. As well as, of course, we can do slats. Vertical, horizontal, diagonal, diamond shaped, etc. And then there's also considering different layouts. So in this particular situation, they wanted railing instead of that weird design. Again, here's that other one we did that was much bigger of a project, and it had two tones. So those 5 perimeter pieces of Trex decking are a darker brown than the middle. I do highly recommend think of a deck and patio build as an investment. A lot of jobs were called out to were actually done not long prior to when we get there, but they were just falling apart. Contractor was a nightmare, clearly slapped together, and we're paid to ultimately redo it. Whether that's the full deck, maybe deck topper, maybe railings, all the above, etc. It's an investment. I mean, if it ever comes crashing down, it is very scary, very dangerous. Kids do play under them. People put jacuzzis and barbecues and hangout spots under them. It can literally be tens of thousands of pounds that comes crashing down. I've even seen them rip the side of a house off. So just please think about where you want to invest your money and how to invest it. And hopefully you do it once and you're done with it. And then let's talk about steel when it comes to fabricating. Part of the price is how pretty do you want the welds, how smooth do you want them grinded down.
to where there's no joint, etc. How many welds are we doing? That is part of where cable slats are pretty cost effective. There is a lot of holes to drill and there's a lot of cable slats to be ran. The cost of the cable slats cost a good bit, but at the same time, versus doing 500 or so mid slats of welding on both sides, that's 1,000 welds, sometimes can be cheaper. And then of course joints like this, where on 3 different ways it all has to be seamless, grinded down, polished. It takes a lot to make them look really nice. Just a friendly reminder, we do everything home and property, not just decks and patios, not just metal fabrication. We do garage doors, we do full basement remodels, house add-ons. We are a network of over 200 fully licensed and insured contractors. We have really just built the company to be a one-stop shop of a bunch of contractors that are all small family business owned. We're not aiming to be that bloated company that wants to charge a mortgage payment per hour of work type of thing. Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe. And of course, if you need anything done on your home or property in northern Utah, reach out anytime. We are always here to help. Have a great day.